Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how I got an A in A-level biology. I actually wasn't going to do videos for biology and chemistry just because I didn't feel like I had much to say that was unique, but I just had a lot of requests for it, so I just thought however I can help, obviously I'm happy to help. So yeah, obviously I didn't get an A star, I didn't get full marks. For chemistry I feel like I know how I could have got an A star. For biology I don't know. I tried very hard in biology but I never thought I would get an A star just because I found the exam paper so difficult. But still, I'll tell you what I did. You can sort of adapt it and take what you like and what you don't like. So it's up to you basically. Okay, so the first thing I would say is to get the CGP textbooks. I talked about this in my Should You Do A-Level Biology video, which will be linked at the end and also in the description. You should definitely check out because I talk about how I revised a bit in there as well. But essentially, those textbooks are my favourite. I didn't mind the biology textbooks we were given. They were the AQA approved ones that we had to buy from school. But I definitely preferred the CGP books, mostly because they were clearer, they were more concise, they had often better diagrams, they didn't have excess information. Usually I preferred how they lay out the topics as well. So in general, if they have it for your course, definitely pick it up. In terms of making notes, I said this before in other videos, but I didn't make notes in class. What I would do was underline, or you highlight, but underline the CGP textbook and underline the textbook they've given us, and then use what like I've highlighted and underlined, which would be the same colour, so they would always be like coordinated, and then I would make notes using both textbooks. The notes I didn't really ever use, it was more for decoration and to just have notes. But when I would like go to revise, I would just go back to the textbooks and I would just alternate between each textbook. I used them quite a lot, but I definitely use the CGP more. And the notes I would just keep in my folder, and then after the notes I would have the test that corresponded with that section. And that was pretty much what I did. Honestly, making notes, it was a form of revision, but spending so much time making really neat notes and then keeping them, there wasn't much need for me to do that, to be honest, just because I didn't ever revise from them. But it was like what we had to do. We had to have a folder with notes in it. And by all means make notes in class if you find that helpful, but essentially the PowerPoints that teachers would use were straight from the textbook, so I didn't really find much point in using them. I would just use the textbook straight. Also, one thing I did for biology and I 100% recommend is reading ahead. It really helped me in biology. So essentially I would highlight, like I said, or underline the textbook for the section that we're going to do. I wouldn't usually make notes, but sometimes I would, depending on how confident I felt when I read it. If I didn't really understand it, I wouldn't make notes. But if I felt, okay, this topic's quite good, I understand it, then I would make notes. And then that just meant in the lesson, it was almost like a revision lesson, and it really solidifies. And the teachers, they might go over things that weren't clear or put emphasis on different things that the textbook maybe puts emphasis on, and hopefully they'll give you like exam questions and stuff. You essentially want to do every single exam question, and I'm not exaggerating, I think it's totally doable. I did every single exam question that was given to me, and I probably did more because I did some more than once. So basically there's this website this is for AQA only, I think, called Exam Pro, and teachers like have a login to it, and they can basically compile questions by topic, or they can like make a mock or whatever. What one of my teachers did, actually what both my teachers did, is either during a topic or usually just after we finish a topic, give us a booklet or email us a document with all the questions and the answers, and examiners' reports as well sometimes. And I wouldn't necessarily do them straight away. Usually I would do a bit of it because I would do that before the tests, the class like module test that we would have. But I would save them, and then like in the holidays I would spend like an hour finishing off one booklet, or 2 hours because they could be quite long, and I would do them all. And the best way to do it, and this can apply for every subject, is question mark, question mark, question mark. So not to do loads of questions in the market, but to do a question in the market. I wouldn't do this for maths papers or actual exam papers, just because you won't be able to do that in the exam. But for revision questions or doing questions by topic, definitely recommend it. And I mean, in theory, you should then get better as you keep doing the questions, but that isn't always necessarily true, especially with biology. But it's so important to do questions for biology, because they rarely ask straightforward questions of just, what is this? Describe why this happens. It's always in like this whole story. They give you like all this information and like usually studies, and then you have to interpret the question. First, you have to understand the question, understand the study and the information they've given you, and then understand where this applies to in the course and like what you've had to memorise. I think it's definitely the hardest exam, and I think if you actually look at the grade boundaries for biology, I feel like they're definitely lower than chemistry. I don't know about physics, but I imagine probably lower than physics, especially because there's less marks for calculations, which, to be honest, are easy marks. And I know that people maybe who are less confident with maths will say, oh, they're not, but they are, because they're so set in stone, and I don't know, I think it's not easy marks but guaranteed marks. And obviously there are definitely really hard calculations you have to do sometimes, but in general they take up a lot of marks, and it's worth less sort of memorization and understanding, whereas in biology there's not many calculation questions, and the questions are just so much harder to answer. In terms of like revising the maths, I don't think there's much you can do other than do exam questions. There is some statistics in it, but I honestly think it's more scary than it actually is. Like, it sounds more confusing than it actually is, and what they want you to understand. The main thing to get your head around is about significance, but it took me a long time to understand significance, but once you do, you can do everything, so it'll be fine. So those exam questions and booklets or whatever, whether your teacher's print them or email them to you, module tests, mocks, keep them. They're really important. And then a few days before the exam or before mock, go through them, and don't just read them. Read your corrections and the correct answers. And when you go through them and correct them, write down the mark scheme answers in just bullet points or whatever. Usually they're in bullet points in the mark scheme. And then focus on them in your revision, because I just think it's so useful and important to focus on what you've got wrong, because you're likely to do that again. So it's important to know, okay, this is what I thought this time. Would I think that again, like months later after I've done this? Probably. Okay, let me try to remember what the actual answer is. And it's not necessarily that the questions come up are similar or the same, because often they're not. It's just that in general, it's the same kind of mistakes, or what did I interpret wrong? Oh, was I not reading it properly? Oh, did I do this? Whatever. I don't know how to explain, but I actually find it so useful. And I remember the day before, I think it was my second biology exam, I was reading a test that I had done on an A2 topic, and I'd written gene pool or something, right? And I'd written it, and then I'd written it loads of times in like different styles of handwriting, and I looked at it and I thought, why have I written that? And I realised it was an answer to a question, and I was like, okay, why did I write that in like so many different handwritings or whatever? Clearly I was bored in class. And then in the exam something came up. It wasn't gene pool, I don't remember what it was, like a term that was like smaller gene pool, something like that, but that came to my mind because of what I'd read in my old test the day before, and I'm pretty sure it was right. Obviously I don't know, but it was like a much better expression that summed up everything that I wanted to say in whatever question it was, I don't remember. So I just find that it's really good sort of last minute revision, a week, day before the exam, just to go through old tests and old mocks and stuff like that. There weren't any revision channels or websites that I've particularly used. Again, like a few days before the exam, I found a channel that actually went through the AS practicals and maybe the A2 ones. I'll link it down below. It's also linked to my other video, but it was really useful, actually, the best practical channel that I've seen in terms of explaining it. They were a bit different to what we did, but in general it was pretty good. I find the practicals so difficult to revise because they're just so boring, and it's just, do you know what I mean? It's just like a list of instructions. But that's not the important thing. The important thing is the concepts in the practicals. So things like calibration curves, how to find where water potential is 0, things like that come up a lot, and they're all about understanding. Also, there are things that they just want you to memorize it, like how centrifuging works. I can't even remember what it's called. Ultra filter, I don't remember what it's called, but the thing where you spin it, they like you to understand it as opposed to just know what the steps are. To understand, why does it have to be a cold buffered isotonic solution, why do you have to spin it twice to find the mitochondria, things like that. So practical questions, again, your teacher should be able to give you access to them. Really, really important, especially for paper 3. And they can be quite repetitive. In biology, they're definitely easier than in chemistry, because I think most people understand the biology practicals a lot more. But yeah, definitely practice those. Again, that's something you can do at the end of the course or in the middle of the course. In terms of what you should be doing now, sort of like, what is it, September, just memorise things as soon as possible. Try to memorise them really early on, because I memorised some topics for the test and some topics I didn't memorise in time for the test, and the ones that I did memorise in time for the test I would forget, like everything else. It was so much easier to come back to. I didn't memorise photosynthesis and respiration at the time, and I wish I had, because it was a pain to memorise. Still don't think I actually perfected it. Another one's muscle contraction, I didn't memorise, whereas like the homeostasis topics I did memorise at the time, so they were a lot easier to revise later on. Even though it's like months down the line, it's just so much easier. Like I said, I didn't find any websites that had notes or questions on them, but in general I think just make your own notes. It's never good to use someone else's notes. Sure, read them, but make your own notes using many different sources is the best thing you can do. There's no point reading other people's notes. I know somebody requested my notes, but I've thrown all my notes away. I didn't even use them, so I don't see what use they would be to anyone else. The final thing I want to talk about is the essay. You won't probably do this until the end of the course, just because they're usually very synoptic. The best thing for the essay was definitely not to explain, like, basically use PEE and think, what is my point? So for example, if they asked you movement, okay, why is movement important? It's about, why is it important? It's not, where is movement in the course? Okay, so active transport, running away from a predator, I don't know, what's another thing? Okay, whatever, those 2 examples. You could just write about like receptors and nerves or whatever, and is it like fight or flight? You could just write about that, but that's not going to be get you as many marks as if you explain why that's important. I'm not making any sense. So essentially your point would be movement is important because it's needed for digestion. For example, in digestion, molecules move across the small intestine by active transport, by diffusion, whatever. That's your evidence, okay? That's the actual part of the course that you've learned. And then the explanation is, this is important because we need these things for energy, we need these things for this, and like talking about why that process is important. Oh, you need to constantly remove it so you have a concentration gradient, etc., etc. That's sort of the way to go about it. It's difficult, and I never got full marks in any of the ones I did. I think I got about 20 out of 25 was probably the highest I got. I didn't manage, I spoke about this in my other video, but didn't manage to put any further reading information in it. It was absolutely impossible, like I found it. So yeah, but in general the only way to prepare is to do essay plans and really not think about different parts of the course that relate, but why it's important, and really go into your deep understanding of biology. Just do essay plans. You can do old spec ones, that's what I did, and just get your teacher to mark it in the new style. Like the style of the questions are very similar, but that's probably the most useful thing you can do for the essays. Okay, so I think that's the end of the video. That's pretty much all I can think of that was good. Like in my maths video, I also kept a spreadsheet of my tests, but didn't find it nearly as useful as maths because there were so many more past papers for maths than for biology. I did these specimen papers at the end of the course, but by the time you're watching this, there'll actually be a few more papers you can do than for us, because we were the first year. Also make sure your teachers give you these second set specimens that are only access to teachers. You'll probably get them at the end of the year, because they use them in mocks and stuff. But yeah, if you have any questions, also if you have any, like, if you want to suggest any videos, then please do. Please just leave it all in the comments. I reply to all the comments pretty quickly as well, so please do that. Like, comment, subscribe, everything. Check out my other videos, which will be on the screen about now. But that's it for this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. My next one will be how I got an A in chemistry, and then after that, who knows, because I'll be at uni, so what will my schedule be? I have no idea. But yeah, I'll see you all later. Thank you for watching. Bye.